So you're a healthcare professional who has credentials, whether you're a dietitian or a doctor, you have that influence because of your expertise. That's versus an influencer who literally needs millions of followers to make a significant amount of money. That's going to be something that you actually own. So you own your website. And so that becomes really marketable. You're reaching a lot of people. Hey everybody, it's Amy Gorin here, and I am so excited to be here with you today for the official launch of the Master the Media podcast. This is something I've been dreaming about for a very long time, and I just am so passionate about sharing information about how to get featured in the media and how to use that to develop time freedom and income freedom as a healthcare professional. And I just have so much that I want to share with you, and I don't think it should be something that's kept secret. So today we're going to be talking about my personal story as a magazine editor turned media registered dietitian turned owner of Master the Media, and how I've helped so many hundreds of healthcare professionals earn hundreds, actually millions of dollars in brand partnership revenue, and why you should be interested and care about getting featured in the media. And what does that even mean? So I'm really excited to talk with you today about how you can get started on this path. It's not intimidating or scary once you know just a little bit about taking a little bit of a dive in. And before we dive into all of that, I just want to share that we're going to be hosting a live Q&A. We actually have two of them upcoming on, there's one May 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and that is going to be for any physician or advanced care practitioner. So if you're a physician's associate, nurse practitioner, or nurse, we're going to be talking all about how you can use the media to leverage getting $50,000 in paid brand partnerships. Then we're going to have a session on May 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That session is going to be for registered dietitians and other healthcare professionals. We're going to be talking about the same topic, how you can use the media to leverage landing those amazing brand partnerships. So you can grab your free spots. Spots are limited. Go to masterthemedia.co/Q&A. So that's masterthemedia.co/Q&A. And I can't wait to see you there. So I want to start off by sharing a little bit about my personal story. So, wow, there's a lot to share. For one, I used to be a very shy, honestly, wallflower. I was afraid to talk to people. I was petrified of being on TV. My training is, I have a bachelor's in journalism and art, and then I went to graduate school for journalism. And in graduate school, we did a TV day where we, practiced being on TV. And I was like, this is horrifying. I can't stop blinking. I can't get comfortable in front of the camera. I never want to do this. And then fast forward to when I began working as a magazine editor in New York City. So I was the person who was deciding which health and nutrition content we were going to be featuring in publications like Health and Prevention and Parents, which experts we were going to be featuring. And one day when I was working at American Baby, my boss said, okay, Amy, you're going to be on NBC tomorrow. So sorry, not NBC, CBS. And I had to get comfortable really fast. I got media trained in one day, did TV, and I was, it was like a 3-minute segment. And I was like, this is amazing. I got this huge adrenaline rush. And since then, I have loved being featured in the media. And so my story is when I worked for close to a decade as a magazine editor working on the nutrition content and health content of publications. And at a certain point, I got to say, all of this stuff is so interesting, but I want to learn, I want to understand it on a deeper level. So I started chipping away at going back to school to become a registered dietitian nutritionist. It took me 7 years of part-time work. And in that time, I always kind of had some kind of an inkling I wanted to combine media work and nutrition work, but I wasn't 100% sure. So when I finally became a dietitian and I was okay, I should go work as a dietitian. And I got a job at a long-term care center. And it was also a rehab center. So people went there after surgery to recuperate. And I hated the job. I spent my days like writing notes for charts for insurance and barely seeing patients. And I thought, and I was making like this much money, like $40 an hour, which I know it's not low, but like for all of that work I did, for all of that education, I wanted to be making more money and have more time and income freedom. And so I started thinking, how can I combine these two worlds? And one of the last conversations I had before I left to become a dietitian at I was working at Weight Watchers at the time. I met with the cereal company and they had told me, whenever you're a dietitian, circle back because we hire dietitians like you to represent us on TV. So I thought there has to be something here. So I spent the next couple of weeks not only talking to every media dietitian I knew and picking their brains, but also reaching out to all the brands I had met over the years. So hundreds of brands. And I just said, hey, it's me, Amy. I'm doing something different. Now I'm a dietitian. I can help you, communicate to the public about your product. You can hire me as a spokesperson. I can make recipes for you. And I also reached out to all of the contacts I had in the editorial world. So I started getting writing gigs at Food Network and Everyday Health and all of these amazing publications. And before I knew it, I was getting featured in the media, which is something that I had always been on the other side of. So now my name was everywhere in these really large publications like MSN and Food Network and Time and Newsweek. And that was a really cool way to get the word out. Like, hi, I'm Amy Gorin. I'm a plant-based registered dietitian, and I have a lot to say, and I can reach millions of people all at once. And what happened is I leveraged that media attention that I was getting. So, when I was seeing patients as a dietitian, I was talking to one person at a time, which is awesome. You can help, one person at a time, sometimes small groups of people. When I started doing interviews, so getting featured in the media, dietitians' best tips for plant-based eating, what are dietitians' favorite plant-based frozen meals, those kinds of articles, I all of a sudden was reaching millions of people with one quote at a time that I was giving to media. And before I knew it, the amount of people I was reaching through the media grew from millions to literally 3 billion. And that's when I started having those conversations with brands of how can I help you get the same media attention and leverage all of this to get people interested in purchasing your product, understand why they need the product. And so long story short is in my first year as a registered dietitian, so I went straight from being a magazine editor. The most I ever earned was $89,000 as a magazine editor. The least I ever earned in my first couple of years was about $30,000 as a magazine editor. So I went from earning that income to all of a sudden in my first year as a dietitian, I was working with brands. I was writing for, outlets like Food Network. I still had a column for WeightWatchers.com at the time that I was writing. And I was working with brands, like making recipes for them, doing media interviews on their behalf. And I was also seeing some private practice patients. And in that year, I earned $147,000 as a dietitian. And I was like, okay, this is working. I still would like to be working a little bit less and making more money. So then in my second year as a dietitian, I really just figured out the code of how, okay, if I am featured in the media, then this media attention is going to feed into brands wanting to work with me because they're going to say, oh, Amy, yeah, she is featured in Everyday Health, Forbes, HuffPost, all of these publications all the time. So we want to work with her. We want to pay her to be an expert on our behalf. And then I started getting these tens of thousands of dollar jobs working with brands. I was able to do some really cool things, like some of my favorite projects over the years where I worked with Panda Express to make their core menu healthier, and that literally impacted the health of millions of Americans all at once. I worked with a coffee company to make a recipe ebook that they use as an opt-in, that they wanted to use as an opt-in for their website. And a lot of other just really, really cool projects with some of my favorite brands, like Amy's Kitchen, for instance. And in my second year as a dietitian, I earned $262,000 just from my media and brand partnership work. And that's when people started coming to me just saying, hey, Amy, I'm a dietitian, or I'm a health coach, I'm a physical therapist, I'm a physician. How do I also get featured in the media? And work with brands. And so that's really how Master the Media began as a business, was as a passion project to help people, help other healthcare professionals figure this out too, because there's not a lot of information out there about any of this, about how to get featured in the media, about how to get paid by brands, about how to work outside of the clinical setting as a healthcare professional. And so that was back in 2016 was when Master the Media was launched. And then a little bit after around the time of the pandemic was when I got to be like, this is what I want to be doing full time, is helping other healthcare professionals get featured in the media and, get that time freedom, fight that burnout, earn that income that maybe you're earning, but maybe you're working too many hours and you're not happy, you're not satisfied. And so that's what I'm really focusing on today is, in the last year, our Master of the Media students, we were able to help them earn over $1 million in paid brand partnerships. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story. I'll be sharing a lot more of my story in this podcast on future episodes, but I wanted to give you that background as a reason, as a segue into why it's so important if you want to get into this work, if you want to impact millions of people with your health messages that you're so passionate about, right? If you want to, get that recognition. I mean, let's be honest, it's really cool to say, hey, I'm Amy, I've been featured in NBC, ABC, HuffPost. And then also to work with, the brands that you love and that you'd be recommending day to day anyway, but to get paid by those brands to recommend their products to the public. So it's a really fulfilling job that's really fun, but also incredibly lucrative. So that's what I want to talk to you about right now. So the first thing I think that we should talk about is, what is a media feature? So I'm going to use this term. I'm going to say media feature, and you're going to be like, maybe I know what Amy's talking about, maybe I don't. So I just want to walk you through that. So when you read any kind of article on any website or even in a magazine, so that, say you go to Everyday Health and you Google, what should I be eating for an autoimmune diet? What should I be eating before I run a half marathon, or what should my training schedule be? And you read any of those articles. There's two ways that you can be a part of those pieces of content. One is that you can be the writer of those articles. We're not going to talk really about that today. We will talk about that in the future. The other way is that you can be a contributor to those features. You can spend, honestly, a few minutes of your time giving a quote about, hey, I'm a sports dietitian, and here's what I tell my clients to eat, before their run, during their run, after their run. Here's how it varies when you have a different kind of distance that you're running. And then when you get featured in that publication, what's really cool is not only does your name get featured, so you begin to grow that name recognition. And what can happen is, if you're trying to grow your private practice, then people are going to come and say, hey, I want to work with this famous dietitian who was featured in this publication. And that's going to organically grow your clientele. I don't see patients anymore, but I have an entirely full wait list because people find me from the media that I do. And one day in the future, I'll hire another dietitian to take on those patients, and that will be another income stream. But for now, this is, if I wanted to grow that income stream, I could easily get new clients and honestly charge more because I'm a famous dietitian. And then what happens is, a lot of times, not always, but when you include, it's called a credit line. So if my quote is, my favorite frozen plant-based meal is Amy's Kitchen's pad thai. And I tell, and then it says, end quote, says Amy Gorin, MS, RDN, a plant-based registered dietitian in Stamford, Connecticut. And then either, my name or the word dietitian links back to either my website or my Instagram. And so that's a really great way to not only bring in potential clients on your behalf, but also to, you can grow all of your platforms. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure if you've gone to, any blog, any website, there's something that pops up, there's a window and it says like, grab a free meal plan or grab a free guide. And you put your email into that and you get something that pops up in your inbox. And that's what's called an opt-in. And that's really one of the best ways to grow your newsletter list. And you can hold on to those names and start your newsletter list a year from now. You can start it tomorrow. Maybe you already have one. But my point is that's going to be something that you actually own. So you own your website, you own that list of people. You don't own your Instagram profile. Instagram could go away tomorrow. And so that becomes really marketable because, you're reaching a lot of people at once. I have a nutrition business, Plant-Based with Amy, and then I have Master the Media, which is my media training and certification program for healthcare professionals. And each of, especially my Plant-Based with Amy list, there's, I want to say about 8,000 people on that list. And really the majority of them have come from people finding me through my website. A lot of those people come from media articles that my link is included in. And that's how I built my list. And then what can happen is I can use those newsletters to engage my audience, but then also sell to them. I have meal plans and recipe books on my website. And then also my favorite thing is brands can pay you to send out something on their behalf, like, hey, there's this new product you should know about, download this free coupon code. You can get it for free, or, there's a million different ways to do that. But that, for instance, if you have even a few thousand people on your newsletter list, that can pay several $1,000s alone. So that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about monetizing the media to make money. And there's multiple ways. So we just talked about using media features to grow your client base and get more patients. So that's one way to build income. And then we also just talked about using your media features to get people onto your platform. So your newsletter list, for instance, and using that to make money. You can also use your media features to build your social media platforms. As I said, you don't own those profiles. It could, LinkedIn could go away tomorrow. Facebook could go away tomorrow. But those are still valuable to build audiences for. And so what I do, for instance, is when I'm interviewed for the media and I provide a credit line, maybe today I'll include a link back to my website. Tomorrow's interview, I'll include a link back to my Instagram. And that way I'm growing all of these different profiles at once. And then that's something, those social media platforms are something that brands are also going to be interested in paying you to be featured on. And that, say you have even 1,000 followers, you could still charge anywhere. You could still charge, like, say, $1,000, $1,500, even $2,000 for a social media post on behalf of the brand, talking about their product or about how you use their product. And the reason that you can get paid these sums of money is because you're an expert with influence. So you're a healthcare professional who has credentials, whether you're a dietitian or a doctor, you have that influence because of your expertise. And that's versus an influencer who literally needs millions of followers to, make a significant amount of money per social media post. So that's one of the amazing reasons why you should leverage your expertise with the media and with brands. And then the third way, or I don't even know, are we on number 3 or 4? I'm not sure. But the next way that you can make money by being featured in the media is through more robust brand partnerships. And so what I mean by that is brands can hire you to, do a media interview on their behalf. So they might want to, what I mean by that is they might send some emails out to reporters and say, hey, we have Amy here. She can talk about, what to eat to stay fueled for your spin session before you go to the gym. Do you want to interview her? And then they're setting up interviews on your behalf. You're talking to the media. You're mentioning their brand in your media interviews. There's a lot of ways to collaborate with brands. There's literally like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. And so, it could be you're creating recipes for a brand's website, you're being the talent at an event where maybe there's an event that the brand's hosting for other media or influencers, and you're the dietitian who's present to answer questions, or you're the physician there who's answering questions. I once went to a sexual health event where there were different products and there was an OBGYN answering questions. And so that's one way you can work with brands. You can be hired for to be the talent at a trade show event, a trade show booth for a brand, answering questions. You can create social media content. You can write content for a brand's website or for your website. There's a lot of different ways. And so what I love to teach is, and this is something I teach my Master of the Media students all the time, is you're not just coming to a brand and saying, hey, I can do this one thing for you. Okay, I can do an Instagram post for you. I can do a blog post for you. You're saying, you're having a conversation with the brand. You're helping them, you're talking to them to understand their goals. Either you're helping them clarify those goals or you're listening. So they might say, hey, we're really trying to reach more consumers. We're really trying to reach more healthcare professionals. And so you can strategize with them to say, okay, for your goal of reaching healthcare professionals, I think we should do a webinar where I'm educating healthcare professionals about what your product does. I think we should do some email blasts to my list to get the word out about the webinar, and also some social media posts, and also X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden, you're not talking about a small sum of money. You're not talking about just $1,000. You're talking about a $10,000 partnership. And that's how this amount of money that you're earning from brand partnerships becomes really, really meaningful. So I'm actually going to stop there because I just probably, I've thrown a lot of information at you about, how to work with media, why you should want to work with media, all the different ways that working with media can bring income to your business. And I'm just so excited to continue sharing this information with you in the Master the Media podcast.